Hey, welcome to Build&AI. I'm Nia, your AI learning guide. Let's get into it.
Okay, so picture this. You're out and about, you quickly open up a web-based chat app on your phone to send a super important message, and what do you actually see? Right, a tiny, completely unreadable, broken layout. You're pinching, you're zooming, you're scrolling horizontally for dear life just to find the text input box, which then of course instantly hides right behind your keyboard. It is universally frustrating, right? Well, the reason this happens is simple. That interface was built for a massive desktop monitor first, and your phone? Totally an afterthought. But today, in this explainer, we are going to fix that entirely.
All right, let's just dive right into our responsive design blueprint. We've got a great lineup today. First, we'll tackle the desktop-first problem. Then, we'll look at the mobile-first methodology. After that, we're getting into viewport magic, followed by relative and fluid units. And finally, we'll wrap up with real heights using DVH. Let's get to it.
Section 1. The desktop-first problem. Basically, building a fragile house of cards. So let's go back to that broken chat app. The desktop-first approach really just relies on this classic, almost instinctual inertia we have as developers. You sit down at a gorgeous 1440 pixel monitor, you've got all this glorious space, and you build out your perfect layout. But the reality check hits the exact second you try to cram that spacious design onto a mobile screen. You instantly get overflowing text, margins that are completely useless for touch controls, and just absolute scrolling disasters.
When you actually compare these two paradigms side by side, the contrast is wild. With desktop first, you're essentially building this massive, heavy layout and then writing endless, messy CSS overrides. Patches, just to force things to shrink down. You are literally fighting your own base code. Mobile first, on the other hand, it gives you a rock-solid foundation. You start small, and you only add progressive enhancements as the screen gets larger. The end result is a dramatically cleaner, way more predictable CSS architecture.
Moving on to Section 2, the mobile-first methodology, building a rock-solid foundation. So the absolute crucial point here is this. You've got to build for the minimum acceptable screen width first. In modern web design, we're typically talking about 320 pixels. Listen, if you can make your chat interface perfectly legible, fully functional, and easily scrollable at 320 pixels, you have already solved the absolute hardest part of the layout. You are guaranteeing fundamental usability right from the ground up.
Looking at this timeline of breakpoints really makes the whole strategy click. Notice how we are not creating entirely new designs at every step. We're progressively enhancing. Phase 1? That's your base CSS for 320 pixels. Then, and honestly only then when the layout actually needs more breathing room, do we introduce a media query for Phase 2, which targets tablet sizes around 768 pixels. Maybe we add a bit of extra padding there. Finally, at Phase 3 for desktop sizes around 1024 pixels, we might center the chat or throw in a side panel. We literally only add rules when the physical space permits it.
So, bringing this all back to our chat app example, the impact of this methodology is just massive. When you start mobile first, your messages are automatically guaranteed to be readable without any zooming. That crucial text input field, it won't get lost behind browser UI bars because your base layout was specifically designed for that exact constrained space. Scaling up to a desktop becomes completely effortless, your CSS stays beautifully clean, and best of all, you say goodbye to those frantic last-minute patches.
All right, Section 3. The viewport magic. The magic spell for media queries. Let's transition into the actual tactical toolkit you need to pull this off. And we're going to start with what is pretty much the ultimate developer nightmare. Be honest. Have you ever written the perfect mobile media query? Meticulously crafted your CSS, loaded it up on your actual phone, and the device just completely ignores it? Yeah, it's a highly relatable, incredibly frustrating moment. Why aren't my media queries working on mobile? You probably think your CSS is broken, but plot twist, the hidden culprit is actually the mobile browser itself. By default, if you don't explicitly tell it otherwise, a mobile browser is going to simulate a fake, massive layout, usually right around 980 pixels wide, and then it just lazily zooms out so you can see the whole thing. So your mobile breakpoint of, say, 500 pixels, it never even triggers because the browser genuinely thinks it's sitting at 980 pixels wide.
So to fix this, you need the ultimate magic spell. And it's this single, incredibly specific line of HTML code that goes right in the head of your document, the meta viewport tag. The absolute key part here is where it says width equals device-width. This explicitly forces the browser to stop faking that 980 pixel screen and to actually respect the device's true physical width, whether that happens to be 320, 375, or 430 pixels. And then initial scale equals 1 just ensures the zoom level starts at a perfect 1-to-1 ratio. And seeing this in action brilliantly illustrates exactly what happens when you drop that tag in. On one side, without the meta viewport, you're stuck with that zoomed out, tiny, completely unreadable page. The browser is just stubbornly simulating a desktop. But on the other side, properly simulated in DevTools, you can see the viewport matches the device perfectly. The text is totally legible, the layout adapts, and suddenly, boom, all those mobile media queries you spent time writing actually spring into action.
Section 4. Relative and fluid units. Abandoning the rigid pixel. Okay, so having the viewport fixed is awesome, but it's really only half the battle. If you go and build your beautifully sized mobile chat layout using rigid pixel measurements, let's say you hard-code it to exactly 375 pixels wide, it is still going to totally shatter the moment someone opens it on a slightly wider phone. To make a design truly responsive, we have to completely abandon the rigid pixel for layout containers.
And this brings us to exactly why relative units are about to become your best friend. Take the rem unit, for instance. It stands for root M. Instead of declaring padding or fonts in rigid pixels, a rem is relative to the root font size of the entire HTML document. This gives you just unparalleled scalability. Think about it. If you need to make everything slightly larger for accessibility reasons, you just change one single root value and the entire app's typography, margins, and padding scale proportionately and flawlessly. It's brilliant.
Now, when it comes to container widths, percentages are the absolute key. You can clearly see how fluid percentage widths just smoothly adapt to their parent container, which is totally unlike those rigid fixed layouts that instantly cause that dreaded horizontal scrolling. The ultimate mobile-first pattern for something like our chat container, it's simply a width of 100% combined with a max width for the desktop view. That combo guarantees it will flex down to any mobile screen size without ever triggering a horizontal scroll bar, while still nicely capping out when you view it on a larger monitor.
To make all of this perfectly clear, I want you to treat this decision matrix as your ultimate developer cheat sheet. Honestly, you might want to literally take a screenshot of this right now. Use rems for your global spacing and fonts. Stick to percentages for fluid containers. Avoid rigid pixels for layouts altogether. And use viewport units like VW and VH with a lot of caution, which actually brings us perfectly to a very specific, modern challenge you will absolutely face with chat interfaces.
Section 5. Real heights with DVH, solving the mobile browser bar issue. Look, if you have ever tried to make a chat app fill the exact height of a mobile screen, you have almost certainly used VH, or viewport height. But traditional VH units are notoriously frustrating on phones. Why? Because when you scroll, or when that virtual keyboard pops up, the browser's navigation bar hides or appears. And that causes the traditional VH measurement to violently jump around, which very often hides your chat input field right beneath the keyboard. Not ideal.
Well, the modern solution to this exact headache lies in dynamic viewport units, and the star of the show here is DVH, or Dynamic Viewport Height. Unlike the old-school VH, DVH dynamically calculates the true visible space on the screen in real time. It actively accounts for whether that browser's address bar is currently visible or hidden. By making this switch to DVH, you fix that hidden input problem forever. Your chat app will just perfectly hug the visible space no matter what the browser UI is doing.
There is a slight catch, though. Because DVH is relatively new, we have to be smart about how we write our CSS so it doesn't break for users on older setups. You always want to provide a fallback. So you write min-height 100 VH first for the older browsers, and then immediately follow it up with min-height 100 DVH. Modern mobile browsers will read that second line and use the perfect dynamic height, while the older ones will just safely ignore it and rely on the fallback. Best of both worlds. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this incredibly powerful philosophy from our source material. True responsive design isn't about looking the same everywhere, but functioning well everywhere. I love that. When you fully embrace the mobile-first methodology, correct your viewpoint, and lean into fluid units, you stop chasing this impossible dream of a pixel-perfect replica across thousands of different screens. Instead, you build a resilient, adaptable foundation. So I'll leave you with this. Is your next project going to be just another fragile house of cards, or will it be a rock-solid, universally functional experience?
And that's a wrap for today. If this lesson was helpful, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you never miss a new episode. We drop 3 new lessons every single week, all designed to help you learn, build, and launch with AI. Share this with someone who's on the same journey, and I will see you in the next one.